My name is Caleb Monroe. I'm 34 years old and I live just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. It's quiet here. I work remotely in IT consulting, a hybrid between systems analysis and digital infrastructure. Good clients, good money. I've been financially independent for a while now, not rich, just stable. I built a life that worked, and honestly, I had it all. A wife I loved more than anything, Jenna. We met in college, one of those love at first sight things people usually say doesn't happen in real life, but it did. She was funny, sarcastic in the best way, and terrifyingly smart. We got married when I was 25. We had two kids, Miles and Ella, 7 and 4. Our house was always loud, full of toys and spilled juice and bedtime stories. I didn't take it for granted, not once. I knew how lucky I was. That morning, it was just like any other. The sun was coming through the kitchen window. Jenna was packing snacks into little Ziploc bags, while Ella sat on the counter humming something from Frozen. Miles was bouncing around, excited about the trip. They were heading to Nashville for a quick weekend getaway. Jenna got tickets to some kid-friendly concert, something musical with dancing dinosaurs, I think. I couldn't go. I had a client deadline I couldn't push. She understood. We kissed before she left. Ella gave me her usual tight squeeze around the neck. Jenna turned at the door and said, "Don't forget to show Ella that space documentary on Netflix tonight. She's been asking." I told her, "You'll be back before I even hit play." She smiled. That was the last thing I remember. Around 3:40 p.m., I was sitting at my desk cleaning up the last set of code revisions when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, area code matching Tennessee. I almost didn't pick up, but I did. It was a state trooper. There had been a collision just outside Knoxville. A semi had veered across the median and hit them head on. No survivors. I don't remember what I said, or if I said anything at all. I just stood up, walked out of my house, barefoot, got in my truck, and started driving. I didn't even tell my supervisor. I left my laptop open on the desk. I didn't grab a charger. I don't know how I made it there. 2 hours later, I was standing behind a line of orange cones and police tape, staring at a crumpled minivan with a child's pink shoe lying in the grass nearby. Someone from the fire department offered me a bottle of water. I couldn't hold it. My hand was shaking too hard. They took me to identify the bodies. I signed papers. Everything became mechanical. I just kept thinking, this isn't real. This isn't my life. But it was. I drove home that night alone. The house was pitch black. Their shoes were still by the door. Ella's coloring book was open on the living room rug. Jenna's coffee mug was in the sink. I sat on the couch for hours, I don't know how long. I couldn't cry, I couldn't move. My body felt like it belonged to someone else. And then the sobs came violent, guttural. I screamed until my throat gave out. The next morning, I woke up on the floor still wearing the same clothes. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't eat. I didn't check my phone. Everything I loved gone in a single day. After the funeral, I came home and sat in my car for 40 minutes. The driveway looked exactly the same. Jenna's favorite hanging plant was still swaying on the porch. The wind chimes were moving. The world kept moving, but something inside me had stopped. When I finally walked inside, the silence hit like a punch to the chest, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring, the kind that fills the whole house and leaves no room for air. Their shoes were still by the door, Miles's little red sneakers, Ella's glittery sandals. They hadn't even been put away. The house, it didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a grave. I didn't turn on the lights. I just went upstairs. The kids' rooms were untouched. Ella's stuffed rabbit was tucked under her pillow. Miles had left a drawing on his desk, a T-Rex fighting a robot. Jenna's side of the bed still smelled like her shampoo. That night, I slept on the floor beside our bed. The funeral itself, I don't remember much. People said kind things, hugged me, brought food. Some cried harder than others. A few looked more uncomfortable than sad. One guy from my office gave me a Bible verse he wrote on a folded napkin. I thanked him, then forgot what it said 10 seconds later. But after the funeral, the people faded. The messages stopped. The phone didn't ring anymore. The house got quieter. I stopped answering emails. I turned off my phone for days at a time. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't even tired, just numb. I walked in circles. I sat on the stairs. Sometimes I went outside just to stand on the porch and stare at the street, but I didn't really see anything. 3 days passed, then 5, then 8. I didn't keep count anymore. One night, I don't even know what time it was. I was sitting in the living room in total darkness. No TV, no phone, just that kind of stillness that feels like it's pressing on your skin. And I was crying. No, I was shaking, the kind of crying that feels like you're trying to breathe through cement. And then a knock. It wasn't loud, just two gentle taps. I didn't move at first. I honestly thought I imagined it, but then came two more. I opened the door without checking. The peephole didn't even care. It was Riley. She lived across the street, 24 years old, worked odd jobs, part-time at a coffee shop, sometimes helped a florist in town. Sweet girl, a little quiet, but always smiling. She used to come over sometimes when Jenna hosted game nights or neighborhood cookouts. Jenna loved her. The kids loved her even more. Riley had this way of sitting on the floor with them like she wasn't in a hurry to be anywhere else. That night, she was standing there in leggings and a hoodie holding a Tupperware container, her hair in a messy bun, no makeup, eyes swollen like she'd been crying too. We just stared at each other for a second. Then I saw her lip tremble. She stepped forward and whispered, "I didn't know if I should, but I couldn't sit in my house any longer and do nothing." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. She looked down at the container and added, "It's just pasta." I didn't know what else to do. She looked up at me with this look, not pity, not fear, just something honest, something that said, "I see your pain and I don't want you to carry it alone." And right there without warning, I started crying again. So did she. She reached out and hugged me. I didn't hug her back at first. I just froze. But she didn't let go, and eventually I did. After a minute, she stepped back and asked softly, "Can I come in just for a bit?" I nodded. She walked inside like she'd done it 100 times before, set the container on the kitchen counter, and looked around. Her eyes landed on a crayon drawing stuck to the fridge, the one Ella made last week. Her chin quivered, but she didn't cry again. We sat on the couch in silence for a while. I stared at the coffee table. She sat with her hands in her lap, occasionally glancing over at me like she wasn't sure if she should speak. Then she broke the silence. "Remember that Halloween when Ella dressed up like a slice of pizza?" I looked over, just barely nodded. She came running across the street to my house and told me she was a spicy pizza and that I wasn't allowed to eat her unless it had ranch. It made me smile, not a full smile, but the kind where your lips twitch a little before the weight comes back down. Riley smiled too. Then she said, "I still have that photo. I could send it to you." I nodded again. I didn't say anything, but I wanted her to know I appreciated it. She didn't stay long, maybe 15 minutes, but before she left, she paused by the door and said, "I'm right across the street. If you need anything, anything you knock." I didn't answer, but I watched her cross the street. She turned around before stepping into her house and looked at mine just for a moment, then went inside. I sat back down, still in the dark, still hurting, but something felt different. Not better, not lighter, just not completely alone. I didn't expect her to come back. I thought maybe that one visit was a moment of kindness she gave into, like when someone impulsively pays for the coffee of the person behind them and then moves on with their life. And honestly, I wouldn't have blamed her. But the next evening, just as the sun was going down, I heard another knock, same gentle rhythm, not pushy, not loud. I opened the door. It was Riley again, hoodie, leggings, hair up, same as before. This time, she was holding 2 paper bags from that local Thai place down the street. "Didn't feel like pasta again," she said, and gave me a faint smile. "Figured you probably didn't either." I wanted to tell her not to waste her time, that I wasn't worth it, that I wouldn't even eat, but I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside. She came in like she'd done it 1,000 times, walked straight to the kitchen, unpacked the food, grabbed 2 plates. She didn't ask, she just set the table. Then sat down, looked up at me like, "You going to sit or not?" So I sat. The food smelled good, but I just pushed it around with my fork. "Eat," she said, not in a demanding way, more like a sister scolding a stubborn brother. "It's okay if it tastes like cardboard. Just eat." I took a bite. It wasn't amazing, but it was warm. She didn't ask questions, didn't talk about the funeral or Jenna or the kids. She just told me about work. How some tourist couple ordered 7 different lattes and complained about all of them. I didn't say much, but I listened. Before she left that night, she packed the leftovers in the fridge, wiped the counter, and said, "I'll swing by tomorrow if well, that's okay." I didn't answer, but I didn't say no. And then she did. She came back every single day, sometimes just for 10 minutes, sometimes for an hour. Sometimes she brought food, sometimes she didn't. One day she brought over a deck of cards and forced me into a half-hearted game of Go Fish. Another day she brought a stack of old coloring books Ella had left at her place and laid them on the table without a word. I didn't know how to process it. The people who said, "I'll always be here for you," disappeared within a week. The ones who dabbed off lasagna never came back. But Riley, she didn't promise anything. She just kept showing up. There were days I didn't want to see her when she knocked, and I almost didn't open the door, but I always did, because in the silence, her voice was the only one that didn't make me flinch. After a few weeks, she started pushing me gently. "Come outside," she'd say. "It's nice out. Just sit on the porch. You don't have to talk." At first I refused, but she kept trying every day until one morning I gave in. We sat on the porch. I didn't say anything. She didn't either. She just handed me a mug of coffee and stared at the tree line with me. It became routine mornings on the porch, evenings at the kitchen table. Sometimes we'd go for a short walk around the block, just 10 minutes, but it was more than I'd done in months. She brought normalcy into a life that had forgotten what normal looked like. One rainy Tuesday, she showed up with a beat-up box full of old photos. "These were in my closet. Jenna gave me some of these after Ella's 3rd birthday." We went through them in silence, one by one. There was one photo of Miles asleep with a juice box still in his hand. I couldn't stop staring at it. My hands started shaking. I had to get up. I went outside, sat on the steps. I didn't hear her follow me, but she did. She just sat beside me, didn't touch me, didn't say anything. And after a few minutes, I said, "I think I forgot how to breathe." She whispered back, "I'll remind you every day if I have to." I lost it right there in the rain, but she stayed. She always stayed. I didn't suddenly become okay. There wasn't some magical moment where the weight lifted off my chest and life went back to how it was. That never happened. But she gave me something I hadn't felt since the accident presence, and that mattered. After about 6 weeks, and she showed up with a grocery bag and said, "You are helping me make dinner tonight." No arguments. We cooked badly. She dropped a pan. I spilled rice all over the floor. We laughed just a little, but it was real. That night when she left, I stood at the door and said something I hadn't said in months. "Thanks for coming." She looked back at me and said, "I'll be back tomorrow." I believed her. It was mid-April when she brought it up. We were sitting on the porch, same spot, same 2 chairs, same mugs. The air smelled like pine and rain-soaked dirt. Riley had just finished telling me about some customer who tried to pay for coffee with coins and then asked her if the espresso had less gluten. I smirked. First real one in a while. Then she said it. "You ever been up to Silver Point Hill?" I shrugged. "Maybe once years ago. Why, there's this spot I like," she said. "It's quiet, no people, just the view. I go there when everything feels too heavy. Thought you might want to see it." I hesitated. I hadn't left my neighborhood in months. The idea of being anywhere outside my comfort zone, even 10 miles out, made my stomach tighten. She saw it in my face. "No pressure," she added. "Just think about it." A few days passed. She didn't bring it up again, but I thought about it over and over. I pictured that hill. I didn't know what was waiting for me up there, but somehow I needed to go. So the next Saturday, I opened the door before she knocked. "I'm in," I said. She blinked. "For what? The hill?" She smiled, surprised but proud. "Okay, give me 10 minutes to grab snacks." We didn't talk much on the drive. The town slipped away behind us. Then the houses, then the pavement. The road turned, narrow trees forming a tunnel overhead. We parked at a gravel pull-off, climbed a short trail lined with damp leaves and moss, and then we reached it. Silver Point. You could see the entire valley from there. Rolling hills, tiny rooftops, distant roads threading through trees. It was the kind of view that doesn't need words. We sat on a blanket Riley had packed. She handed me a bottle of water and a granola bar. I took both, even though I wasn't hungry. Minutes passed in silence. The wind moved slowly, and then she said, "I know this doesn't fix anything." I turned my head. She wasn't looking at me. Her eyes were on the horizon. "I know," I replied. "I didn't bring you here to distract you," she added. I don't want you to forget what the world looks like outside that house. It's still here, even if it feels like yours isn't." I nodded. She turned toward me, now voice lower, slower. "Caleb, I watch you die a little bit every day since that accident. I know you think no one sees it, but I do. I see it. I feel it." I stared at the ground, my hands clenched around the water bottle. "I'm not asking you to be okay," she said, "but I'm asking you to let the pain move through you, not bury you, because I promise you, Jenna wouldn't want you to keep punishing yourself like this." The wind picked up. I felt tears in my throat, that tightening, that burn. She leaned in slightly. "You think you're being loyal to their memory by staying broken, but you're not. You're just staying stuck." I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. But I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw it in her face, the exhaustion, the quiet strength, the loyalty she never once claimed, just lived. I swallowed hard. "I don't know how to move on," I said. "I don't think I want to." She answered gently, "Then don't move on, just move forward, one step. That's all." The sun began to dip behind the hill's shadows, stretching across the grass. We stayed there in silence again, until I finally said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." She gave a sad smile. "Some people are worth the fight." The ride back was quiet but not heavy. Not the silence that eats at you, the kind that fills a space like a blanket. When we got home, I didn't go straight inside. I stood in the driveway for a minute, staring at my house, the same porch, the same swing, the same door that used to open to laughter. But that night when I stepped inside, it didn't feel as cold. I didn't know what was happening between me and Riley. It wasn't love, not in the way I had known it. It was something more patient, more quiet. It wasn't trying to replace anything. It was just trying to exist. And for the first time in a long time, I was letting something exist. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I replayed her words. "Just move forward, one step." So the next morning, I opened the blinds, made coffee, texted her, "Want to sit outside again? I'll make eggs." She replied in under 10 seconds, "I'm already on your porch." It's been just over a year now, 1 year, 1 month, and 3 days since I lost my family, since the world split into before and after, since I stopped pretending that anything in life is promised or permanent. A lot changed since then. Some of it I chose, some of it just happened. I still live in the same house. Jenna's mug is still in the kitchen cabinet. Miles's drawing is still on the fridge. Ella's stuffed bunny still sits on her pillow. I couldn't put them away. I'm not trying to erase anything, but the house isn't silent anymore. Most mornings Riley is here. Sometimes she brings coffee. Sometimes I do. She likes to sit on the porch and sketch while I work from my laptop at the kitchen table. We've fallen into a rhythm, a life one we never planned, but one that feels true. No one ever said it out loud. There was no line where friendship ended and something deeper began. It just happened slowly, naturally, like water shaping rock. One night, about 2 months after the hill, we were watching some documentary on mute while it rained. She leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "I'm not going anywhere." And I whispered back, "I know." That was it. That was the start. We never forced anything. There were still days I broke down, nights I couldn't sleep. Holidays that hit like knives. But Riley never flinched, never judged, never asked me to move faster than I could. She wasn't trying to replace anyone. She was just here. And over time, being here turned into being home. 3 weeks ago, she sat across from me at the breakfast table and slid something toward me. A pregnancy test positive. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at it. My throat went dry. My hands shook, and then I cried, not out of fear or confusion, but something else, something that felt terrifying and beautiful at the same time. When I finally looked up, Riley was already crying too. "I wasn't sure how you'd feel," she said. I reached across the table, took her hand, and said the only thing that felt real, "This doesn't erase anything, but it means something, and I'm ready." We sat like that for a long time, holding hands, saying nothing. That night, I took down the letter Jenna had written me on our 10th anniversary. It had been taped to the back of my closet door. I hadn't touched it since the funeral. I read it all of it, every word she'd written. You always make life feel worth living, even on the worst days. I'd still choose you. I smiled, folded the letter, pressed it to my chest, and said out loud, I still choose you, and now I choose her too. Today, the nursery is half painted. Riley wants to do it herself. She says she finds peace in the brushstrokes. I help where I can, but mostly I just sit and watch her work. She talks to the baby like they can already hear her. We don't talk much about what this baby will fix because we know it won't. Life isn't about fixing, it's about continuing, about breathing through the hurt and finding meaning in what's left. People sometimes ask me how I did it, how I survived losing everything. The truth is, I didn't do it alone. I would have disappeared if it weren't for Riley, if she hadn't knocked, if she hadn't refused to walk away. She saved me not in some dramatic movie way. She saved me by sitting with me when no one else would, by staying when it would have been easier to leave, by reminding me every single day that I still have time, time to heal, time to remember, time to love again, time to build something new, not on top of the old, but beside it. I still talk to Jenna in my head, sometimes out loud. I tell her about Riley, about the baby, about how terrified I am and how grateful. And I hope she'd smile. Last night, Riley and I were sitting out back. The stars were out. Fireflies were starting to flicker across the grass. She leaned her head against my shoulder and whispered, they'd be proud of you, you know. I didn't answer, just took a breath, held her hand and closed my eyes. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole, not the same, not fixed, but whole in a different way, a way I never thought I'd feel again. We're having a daughter. We haven't picked a name yet, but we're close. And when she's born, I'll tell her all about her brother and sister, about the mom I loved and still love, about the woman who showed up when the whole world went quiet and reminded me that even in the worst pain, life goes on. The story of Caleb and Riley delivers a heart-wrenching lesson. Even in the deepest grief, healing begins when someone chooses to stay. Caleb's world shattered with the loss of his wife Jenna and children Miles and Ella, leaving him in a suffocating silence where time seemed to stop. Riley, a young neighbor, didn't offer grand promises or try to fix his pain. Instead, she showed up day after day with pasta, Thai food, or just her presence, refusing to let Caleb drown in isolation. Her quiet persistence teaches us that love and support aren't about erasing someone's sorrow, but about sitting in it with them, offering a lifeline through simple, steady acts of care. Caleb's journey from numbness to embracing a new life with Riley and their unborn child shows that moving forward doesn't betray the past, it honors it by choosing to live. Riley's unwavering presence reminds us that we can be someone's anchor, not by having all the answers, but by refusing to walk away. This story urges us to cherish those who stay and to be that person for someone else, because even in our darkest moments, connection can spark hope. So reach out, show up, and hold space for those who need it. You might just save a life. Have you ever had someone stay through your darkest days or been that person for another? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If this moved you, subscribe and join our community for more stories of resilience and hope. Let's keep inspiring each other to stay connected